Yeah, I'm so excited to dive into this topic because I think it's a topic that so many women can relate to, and it's something that is very like it goes very deep. It's very deeply layered in all of us, and also it's something that really speaks to my heart because I think when we talk about success, we talk about visibility, we talk about standing in our power, it's something that we're not actually taught. We're not taught this growing up and we're not taught this in school. And so it's really a journey for a lot of women to,
Mm.
first of all, the self awareness aspect, but then also embracing who they are. And I think there's so much like liberation that comes with the freedom of when you really do start to embody and step into your own authentic power and alignment. And in that, you really begin to find that visibility, you find that within. But where does it come from? Like, why do so many women shy away from being fully seen?
Mhm.
And why do so many women have guilt around success? Right. So there is
Yeah.
a lot to it.
Where does it come from? And I think like we can break down the root causes. So I would say there are a few root causes as to why that happens to us as women. Number one is the cultural conditioning, right? And we're taught as little girls, be humble, be quiet, don't outshine other people, right? And so it keeps us small, keeps us in that box. And because we've been so programmed that way, we take that into our adulthood too. And we're often afraid of being judged by others if we're too loud or if we speak up or if we shine our light in some way, you know? And that cultural conditioning is something that I'm sure you have been through, Whitley, and I'm sure many women listening right now have gone through. And maybe if they are more confident in themselves right now, it didn't come without work or it didn't come without someone telling them that it's okay to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think for, and maybe, I'm sure there will be some of you sisters out there who get this, but I think for me too, I grew up in a family where, women were very people pleasing, lack of boundaries, just always doing everything, always being the strong one
Mhm.
for everybody and doing everything to appease to other people. And I think in that you lose a bit of your power, you lose that light, you
Mhm.
lose that I guess really when it comes down to it comes down to power, right? And
Mhm.
for me, growing up in that and seeing that and modeling that, I think that also just reiterates that you don't really matter fully. Everyone else and everything else
Mhm.
outside of you matters, but
Mhm.
you don't matter as much. You're not as important. And so it's like showing up in those unhealthy, toxic dynamics. It's showing up in overextending yourself. And I think for me, that's really played a huge part in my own issues when it comes to being seen or because again it comes back, it's very much like tied to that self-worth, right? And how you value
Mhm.
yourself, how you see yourself, right? And so for me it's really been tied to those sort of identities and also like that kind of conditioning. So then when you go out into the world and you're very much in this system that isn't really set up for people to succeed in a way where they get to fully embrace who they are, they get to fully embrace their passions and live a life of like purpose and freedom, right? The system isn't set up that way. And so what you have is a lot of keep your head down, do your work, follow the rules, right? And that there's so many different factors that tie into how women feel and how
Mhm.
women really um I guess what's the word that I'm trying to it really ties into how women not only perceive the world but also how they perceive themselves. And I think it's just so much easier to not be seen. It's so much easier to not not go for the big dreams and to put yourself out there because
Mhm.
I think it's just so much easier and so much more comfortable and let's just
Yeah,
say like safer to not be noticed,
yeah.
right?
And you mentioned that something like how you were saying how you grew up in an environment where, we were taught to worry about everybody else, to tend to everybody else's needs, to please everybody else, to be the nurturer, right? My mom was the same way. And I think it comes down from those inherited beliefs about success. And success is selfish and money is greedy. Like you're greedy if you want money. And so when we look at money and success, it has taught us that, you're okay if you're comfortable or if you have enough. You don't need to like strive for more because you have a job to do here as a woman. You have a job to nurture everybody else. And if you have too much success, you're being selfish. You're not giving back to the people in your life. And I think that number one is like for me too, I've always been in that mode of like going for what I want and that hustle, but there's a balance, right? But I also think that with the lack mentality that been brought up with, like I used to go to the store and ask my mom, never ask my mom for anything because I knew she was having trouble with money and I didn't want to be that person to be like, can I have this? Can I have that? But I always looked at money as it could leave me at any moment, right? So I need to save it. I need to put it somewhere. I need to
Mhm.
have different sources of income because it could always leave me, right? But I always had this mindset too that I wasn't deserving of more money, that I could just be okay with having enough. But then what I recognized was energy and money are the same. Money is energy,
Mhm.
right? And so if we look at money differently as money is energy versus money is tied to greed and selfishness, look at it as what that money can give you and others as well. So what you like to say too, Whitley, and I know you'll share that, but is that we want to give back too. We don't want to just enjoy all of this wealth for ourselves and be greedy. We want it to be a flow. And there's something that I say when I go out all the time, not all the time. Sometimes when I remember is when I buy like say a coffee or something and I'll pay with my credit card or my debit card and I'll always say this arigato in arigato out. It is the Japanese term for thank you for coming in, thank you for going out. And that is what money is, really, right? It always comes back to you. If you have a good relationship with money, it will always flow back to you. But I think what my life has been like is I've always had this baseline of like I just have enough and I'm okay. But now I think
Mhm.
we need to allow ourselves as women to say, you know what, I actually want more wealth than I could possibly imagine or never imagine, that I can allow that to happen. And I'm not greedy. I'm not selfish. I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to change who I am because of money. And I think that's also another thing that scares people is like having too much money can change you as a person, right? And we look at other people as successful and we're like, oh, money changed them. People judge people for that, you know? But at the end of the day, that's a projection on how we feel, right? That's our own lack of what we're feeling that we're not good enough to make that much money. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I think that, everything you're just sharing too, like about money share is so accurate, so on point. I think not everybody has money wounds, no. But I think that when we think about like money wounds, it stems from somewheres and oftentimes it stems from our upbringing, right? Because that type of condition is always passed down. And then of course, like our life experiences also shape that too. But I think like I really would love to like touch on the success and the visibility, both
Mm,
of those and how they tie in together, right? And if for
mhm,
everybody, it's going to look a little bit different, but I think that over the years of doing this inner work and doing my own healing and really like asking those deeper questions and sitting with myself and sitting with the discomfort of all of the things, right? And I think also for me, it's always been like I've always strived to be successful, right? Successful on paper. And I think that that success has been very much rooted in my own self-worth wounds, right?
mhm,
Trying to prove myself to others. And I think for the longest time I believed that if I could be successful enough, that then I would be good enough.
Mm,
if I could achieve XYZ, well, then
mhm,
maybe I will be happy then. If I can achieve, XYZ on this, then maybe, I'm actually gonna feel a lot better about myself in life. But like the crazy thing is like a lot of this stuff runs beneath the surface. And so it's very much like subconscious, right? And we don't even really
mhm,
realize we're doing it until we start to like sit with and we ask ourselves these questions. But for me, it was very much my self worth was always tied to, looking successful on paper.
yeah,
And I realized too, though, I would always cap out at like a certain level. So I would hit a bit of like a ceiling and then I wouldn't go any further. Like I would typically get so far in terms of being quote unquote successful on paper. And then I would hit this kind of like plateau where I would actually start to self sabotage. I didn't know it at the time. But over
mhm,
time, it happening and you start to recognize the pattern, you start to recognize the cycles. And I realized that I was actually self sabotaging and I didn't even know that I was doing it because it was all very much subconscious. And when I
mhm,
started to actually realize, hey, there's a pattern here. Why am I doing this? What's actually really going on? And so we can go into a whole lot of this, like, nervous system regulation and whatnot too, because that has a lot to do with it. But what I realized was that the more successful that I got, the more seen and more visible I got, the closer I was to failing, to being rejected, to being judged. But ultimately, my biggest fear, my biggest wound that is tied to visibility, that was tied
mhm,
being successful really came down to my fear of being abandoned. Because as
mm,
a child, there were instances in my life, experiences in my life that were very deeply traumatic to me that left me to feel abandoned in the world, and that carried on through my childhood, that carried on into my teenage years, into my early adult years. And so it was this core wound that I kept experiencing throughout my journey that just kept showing up for me, but in different experiences with different people, different environments. But that was my core wound that I actually was able to uncover. And once I was able to uncover that, I was really, truly able to understand. Well, that's why I shy away from being visible back
mhm,
when I was doing this. That's why I was always constantly kind of like hitting that ceiling and self sabotaging because it was the more that was out on the table, the more visible that I was, that the closer I could possibly be where everything can burn to the ground and I would be abandoned. And so myself, my subconscious, my nervous system, my ego, everything was protecting me from the one thing that caused so much pain to me throughout my entire life. And so once you start to actually sit with yourself and you start to like ask yourself those questions, you then begin to uncover those deeper patterns and those deeper wounds that you've carried for probably a lifetime. And then once you start to work on those things, it becomes easier. You start to break the patterns. You start to break free from that subconscious programming. And then you can rewrite the script. You can start to write a new narrative that then serves as a roadmap, as a tool to equip you to start to step into the success, into the visibility, but you get to rewrite the relationship with it as well. Just like you were talking about your relationship with money, right, Cher? It's like, what's your relationship with these things? And what are those deeper things that you need to fix beneath the
mm.
surface in order to rewrite that so that you're walking into alignment with it?
Yeah, and that's a big fear to have, abandonment, because everybody has a fear of something, the shadow, right? And we talk a lot about shadows because we carry that through whatever we do and whatever we're scared of. Those are shadows that we carry. But it's not about getting rid of those shadows, right? It's about facing them and understanding them in a way that it's like healing you. So you don't have to be scared of them, you know? And when you say you're aware of that abandonment, you're carrying that with you in every decision you make, and trying to not sabotage yourself because you know the truth of why you may stop yourself, right? And so it's really about finding that truth, I think. And for me, it's like fear of visibility is fear of being judged, fear of rejection. and fear, that they'll see me and think something of me. And maybe it's my looks, maybe it's the way I speak, maybe it's whatever that looks like for some people. And I think I've been through those phases, right? Where it's like, "Oh, well, I have a career that requires me to show up." And I see a lot of people hiding themselves, but I find that what has worked for me throughout all the years of showing up is to show up anyway, but show up with intention. As long as I'm showing up with the right intention and I'm doing it out of pure, alignment. I'm not doing it to be liked or seen or understood, but I'm also doing it to align with the right people. Understanding that some people will not get it. They will judge you, but again, that's a them thing. It's not a you thing. So you have to understand that if you're doing things out of pure intention and alignment with honesty, integrity, ethics, all of that stuff, you're doing it with the purest alignment of what it is you want to achieve from this. So a lot of people, I mean, I'm guilty of it. Back in the day, I would come on just to show up, just to get the praise, just to get the external validation. But what I found was it was kind of putting me in that victim mentality mode. Like it was putting me in a space of a victim versus a space of an empowering version of me. And so you flip the script, you go, all right, I'm no longer afraid of this. And even if I am, I'm going to walk with it, but I'm going to do it with empowerment. I'm going to do it with intention, and I'm going to do it with purpose. I'm going to do it so that it aligns me with the right people and that I can evolve in this space, in this path this journey that I'm on, that I'm doing it with the purest of heart and is soul led, right? And that takes practice, but you're never going to really see that or get that confidence without taking that action, without facing those shadows and those fears. So one is understanding what your shadow is, why you feel that way, and understanding that it is not true, and that you can walk with that shadow and say, you know what, you're not going to take over. It's my time now. I'm empowered in this space. I get to choose how I live, and nothing can hurt me. Nobody's judgment on me is going to affect my life. I can go and live in pure, authenticity, because we use that word a lot, authenticity. And if we ask ourselves that one question when we show up, am I being authentic? And the other question is, am I being intentional? Because if you're not, then you are doing the latter. You're being a victim to your surrounding, and you're sabotaging, and you're living in that fear. You're letting the fear win, and you're not growing. So if you're not going to face that, you're not going to grow out of that. And if you're not going to understand that you're in the victim mode, then you can stay there, or you can choose to say, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to do me. And I want to get from A to B to C
Yeah.
to D. I don't want to go backwards.
Yeah.
So for me, that's helped, just knowing who I am, loving who I am regardless, and also not really peeping at who's watching me. I think that's the thing people do wrong, is that they go in and they're like, who watched my stories? Oh my God, it's so and so. And I know they don't like me. So like they're watching me. Here's the other thing. You get to choose what you show up as. And if there's certain people that don't like you and they don't like you, hit the unfollow button, girl. You don't need to have them in your circle. I've done it many times, and guess what? It's opened me up to being who I am, because sometimes when people are watching, especially family and friends, people are really scared of that, like having family and friends watch them. But that's sometimes it can halt your growth. So don't feel guilty for saying, you know what? I don't want them watching me right now, because I need to grow. I need to be in the space that's most comfortable for me. So I think you don't need to face that fear if you don't want to. You can just say, hey, I need to go. I need new space. I need a new room.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be my big tip for showing
Yeah.
up.
I love that. And as you're talking about like shadows, right? And so like when you talk about shadows, I think in my experience of like my own self-discovery, looking at shadows, I kind of look at my shadows in a sense of like there's all these different old past versions of Whitley, right? And they're shadows because they're in the past, right? But so many times they're either running the show Like they're in the driver's seat operating when really it should be your current self, who you are or who you're becoming should be in the driver's seat, right? And so
Mm.
like I love that you touched on the fact that, it's like don't resist them, don't resist the shadows. The shadows are not a bad thing, right? They're just all the versions of yourself who got you to where you are today. They're all the little versions of yourself who've protected you and how to get you through some of the shit that you've been through, right? But they're not bad. And I think it's like once you start to embrace all of those parts of you and,
Mm.
and you thank her, you thank all those versions of her and you allow her and you give her love and you say thank you and release her and you just let her know, hey, I'm taking over now. You don't need you don't need to keep driving. You don't need to keep running the show. It's okay. Like you've served your purpose and I love you, but I release you, right? And it's like
Mm.
moving from that space of love, not like resentment, not resistance, but moving from a space of love, I think really, really helps to um dissolve any of that energy, right? Because you got to get think too is like I'm very much like everything is energy and the thing is how we show up too, we can actually create stuck energy within our physical bodies as well, right?
Mhm.
And so like when we're holding on to emotions that we haven't actually released or um what is it processed, right, then that starts to manifest physically into sometimes physical symptoms, ailments, diseases, all those
Oh,
things, right?
yeah.
So it's so important that you recognize all those versions of yourself, those shadow sides of yourself, because you'll often realize that when you do that and you actually just give her the light and you give her the space that she is needing and wanting, you give her love, that actually is such a powerful way of processing and releasing old stuck emotions. And
Mhm.
I think that's a big part of how I've been able to work through a lot of the unprocessed emotions that I experienced that I didn't know that I was like clinging on to, right? But it was like sitting with her, sitting with the different versions, sitting with the little girl version of her, sitting with, 5-year-old Whitley, 8-year-old Whitley, 15-year-old Whitley, 23-year-old Whitley. It was like sitting with all those little versions of her and giving her the light, the visibility, giving her the
Yeah.
visibility without judgment, without abandonment, right? And it's oftentimes our biggest wounds that are tied to these things like success, money, visibility. Oftentimes, those wounds are just so tied to the versions, the shadows of ourselves that we just need to sit with. It's like oftentimes we just need to give her the love. We just need to give her the reassurance that, hey, I haven't betrayed you, I haven't abandoned you, I love you, but I release you now. And
Yeah.
it's just it's really powerful stuff. It's very powerful stuff, guys, when you
Yeah.
really do start to recognize these aspects about yourself and you start to sit with yourself and you start to realize that when you do this, you're not
Mhm.
always you're not hiding anymore. You stop hiding, you stop seeking, you stop filling voids, you stop
Compare.
scrolling as much, you stop
Yeah.
comparing, and you start to find yourself, you start to find your truest self. And when you start to really love and nourish her, watch out because you're going to be fucking unstoppable.
You also find the right people for you when you start to do that, right? It's like
Mhm.
you're in the frequency of attracting the right people for you when you start to embrace the full you, the authentic you, the messy you, not the perfectionist, polished, formative side of you. And I think that's where we've stopped playing the game. And the game has always been you're not enough if you are not polished or perfect or show up as this way or that way. And then there's a whole comparison trap and, the imposter syndrome because there's so much
Mhm.
online of people doing it a certain way. So you start to get in your head sometimes, right? And if I could say one thing about what you said about, those shadows and facing those things and healing those things, it's very important that we move through our businesses b- with grounding, with coming back to center. Because if we don't do that, we can easily get lost. And if we center ourselves back to who we are, we recognize the things that are keeping us stuck. We face those things rather than putting them off to the side and saying, you
Mhm.
know what, I'm just going to go through it regardless of how I feel. But guess what? Those feelings are still within you if you're not dealing with them. So, yeah, they're getting stuck in areas, and those areas are keeping you from being your highest potential because it's all energy. We're all energy. Everything we do is energy. Everything we want has to be, if we want to have the highest goal, we have to feel the energy that is attached to that vision. And so if you're not centering yourself and coming back down to your vision, that takes, that takes practice, but that's something that we all have within us to do that is free. We can literally get up in the morning and do it. We can literally do it 5 or 6 times a day if we want to, like if we choose to, and it doesn't take that much work, right? It's just all about really anchoring in your body and finding your breath, finding your center, finding your why, facing your fears, going for the things that you want, recognizing that you're safe and you're
Mhm.
protected
Mhm.
and you don't have to be afraid anymore. And I think so
Mhm.
many of us feel like, we got to do it this way, we got to do it that way, we got to stay in this box. And I dare everybody listening right now, I don't dare, I challenge you, get out of your box. Do something crazy today, impulsive. Do something that you've always wanted to do. Maybe you never thought yourself, even if it's raining outside, go dance in the rain. Like, do something that maybe someone told you not to do it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You know what? I love that so much, and I'm gonna take you up on that
Yeah?
challenge
Is it
today,
raining?
because well, no, but I'll do something outside of the box, because I went for my walk this morning, and I was going for my walk, I was like, "Hey, let me write in some new affirmations, because I'm constantly growing, we're all constantly growing, right? So I this is my thing, I do my little affirmations, but basically, as I was doing that and I was listening to just like my soft tones and my headphones, I just like as I was walking, I thought to myself, I feel like there's a part of us that wants to just break free, wants to like really truly break the matrix and just like glitch the matrix in the sense of like doing something like dancing, skipping down the street, or talking to a stranger, just doing something that that a child wouldn't think twice to do. You know what I mean? Like how children are so
Yeah,
like playful and they don't care. They're not worried about like they're not worried about all the things. So
like the
like
unconventional or
the
unorthodox.
unconventional part, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
one thing that I recognize is this, which is super, super freaking cool, because this is something new for me. But we all have like this alter ego. And I like to say, like, this alter
Myra?
ego.
You're Myra.
Shh, shh, shh.
Alright, we won't tell. We won't tell.
But we all do. We have this alter
Yes.
ego, and oftentimes that alter ego is like very much tied to like that truest, purest version of ourselves. That version of
Mm,
ourselves that would say, "Fuck it, I'm skipping down the street. I'm gonna dance down the street because my music's blasting in my ears right now, and I'm just like I feel like I'm on cloud nine." Or I'm gonna strike up a conversation with that stranger, or I'm going to give that stranger a compliment because I just want to. It's like that part of you that wants to play with life, that part of you that just wants to be free, that part of you that just wants to have fun, right? And I say like
yeah,
we all have like that part of us, right? And it's like
yeah.
if you just kind of looked at your life and you just looked at yourself and you're like, okay, like you're and I have an alter ego. Give your alter ego a name. Like my alter ego is, yeah, it's Myra. But
I'm
like give
Vanessa.
her get we don't like Vanessa. Vanessa does not come out, okay? Vanessa, no. We're not
I
giving
don't
her
think
the
I
light.
have an alter ego. I need an name. I
That's
don't
what I'm
know if I have an
saying.
alter ego.
This is what I'm saying. So I'm gonna double on to Sherry's challenge, and I'm gonna challenge you today to think of give that version of her a name. Give her a name. Whatever comes to mind, name her. And what is she like? What does she want to do? What is it all the things that she wants to do that you keep her contained? Like if you just
Mm,
let her out of the cage, what would she do and how would she show up? Give her a damn name and go do something crazy and spontaneous, like Sherry said. You'll have fun. Like you just have
I
to play
love
with it and
that.
you'll have fun. And you start to realize that that part of you is actually the
Yeah.
truest part of you.
That's you. That's your
It's
actual
you.
identity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's you. It's actually
Yeah.
you. Like,
Okay.
Myra, she's that's actually me, but guess what? Usually Myra I only let her Myra out typically when I'm drinking because I'm like, "Yeah, it's no judgment. No, we're gonna have fun. I'll let Myra out when I'm drinking." But I'm starting to play, and I'm starting to let Myra out more without
Yeah.
alcohol, and I love it.
I love that because it's almost like a second person, like, you don't judge Myra. You don't judge that alter ego, right? It's like you're
Mhm.
free. That ego, that alter ego, that other version of you,
Yeah.
she's free. She's unapologetically herself. And so, yeah, I love that idea. I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna figure out my alter ego name. And then I'm gonna say, "Hey, whatever your name is," like, I'm gonna talk to her and be like, "What would you do?" Because if you
Yeah.
ask yourself, "What would you do?" which is the real version of you, the one that's too scared to do something or the one that's followed the rules, then she would say, "You know what? Fuck it. Go dance in the rain. Go yell on the mountaintop. Go,
Go take
go in the
that class
store."
that you've been wanting to take, like
Yeah.
yeah,
Go take
all
that
the things,
class. Go make
100%.
friends. Go do something that you never thought you could do because you were too afraid.
Yeah.
100%. I love that. Yeah, and it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be when you're drinking too, right? It could be just the version of you that is no longer afraid to play small.
exactly,
Like, she
exactly.
just
Who's no
wants to
longer
be her.
shrinking, who's no longer
No
hiding, who's
longer
no longer
shrinking.
staying within, like, societal's, like,
Mm,
rules and little box. No, you get to play with
damn.
life, to have fun.
I freaking
Alright.
love that.
Well, actually, this is what we want. This is what we want. So follow us on our socials because we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, all the things, right? But we want to know what's your alter ego name? Like, name her and
If you have
then
one.
want you to
Yeah.
share. What's her name? Tell us
Yeah.
her name.
And also let us know what are areas of your life that you're keeping yourself from being visible, from fear of whatever that shadow is. Let us know what that is for you. We really want to connect, and you are an integral part of this podcast and this community that we're building. So stick around and leave us a review. Send us a message on all our platforms if you want to. Follow us on
Yes.
TikTok and Instagram and, wherever we're at. But we really want to hear from you, and we want us all to learn in this space together. And yeah, so thanks for being here, guys, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.